What's going on, guys? Back on the New England Shakeup, episode 10. Cam and Alex back as always. Lot to uncover today. Cam, what's going on, man?
Not much. I'm just hyped to see all the running back news that happened, honestly.
Yeah,
Kind of shocked by some of the moves.
yeah, to say the least. A lot of free agents on the move, but first and foremost, I think it's just right to really get in deep dive into a lot of the running backs that changed teams. Cam, which one surprised you the most?
Honestly, I know you're a big Eagles guy, and Saquon, seeing Swift leave and they pick up Saquon was a huge shock for me, and I really want to hear what you have to say about Saquon to the Eagles.
So, uh, yesterday was one of the best days of the year so far, and the reason why I say that is because even that Jason Kelsey left, obviously you're gonna have to fill that void at center. That's not an easy position to play. And the way that Kelsey played it, you're never going to rectify that. You're never gonna find the same player. No matter how, hard you deep and how hard you try to find that, it's just not gonna happen. Um, what I think Saquon is to the Eagles is everything. You look at what Kellen Moore did with Austin Eckler in 2021, and you look at what Kellen Moore did with Tony Pollard, and you see what Kellen Moore's done with all these backs, turning them into receivers, and Saquon Barkley has caught 90 balls in a year before. So it's just really, really telling that the Eagles were able to make this move. I mean, it's 3 years, 37 and $37.75 million. So basically $38 million for 3 years that they're paying him. And bonuses are accrued in that also. So the full contract is 3 years for $44.25 million. So he can also add $6 million extra basically in incentives. Um, I think this team is how do you stop them? I mean, they have two 1,000-yard receivers at each side of their wide receiver core. They just added veteran Devontae Parker today also, which will add some experience that they need in that room also.
Who did they add?
Devontae Parker.
Oh, nice.
Patriots released Devontae Parker. Eagles scooped him up on a 1-year deal. Um, but the Eagles are just scary, dude. Like they have no weaknesses at this point. Like Howie Roseman also went out just a few minutes ago and signed CJ Gardner Johnson to a 3-year deal. So
Wow.
they've got their safety back. This team looks scary on paper right now. But me
I know, and then you
pers
see Pollard leave Dallas.
yeah,
That just makes Dallas look weaker. The Eagles got stronger. Yeah, it's looking tough for that division. If you're
looking
any
t-
of the other teams, honestly.
it's looking tough in Jerry's world, isn't it? Yeah, it's looking tough over there. I wanted to ask you too, the other news that dropped today. What do you think about Derrick Henry going to the Ravens?
Scary to give Lamar like a running back option. I don't know. I feel like it's just if they both stay healthy, it's going to be scary. I know that's kind of what everyone's saying, but
Mm-hmm.
giving Lamar an option like that at running back is just yeah, it's just going to do a lot to like reinvent their offense. If they can get another receiver, I think that offense is going to be really good and hard to stop and hold down.
Yeah, and this is a name that comes to mind immediately when you're the Ravens. Why don't you go out and get Marquise Brown and bring him back? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, of course. When you said that at first, I thought you were going to say go after like a Calvin Ridley or T Higgins.
yeah, the thing is I don't think that Cincinnati would trade him to Baltimore. See, the thing with T
Oh no, yeah, I don't
Higgins,
think they would either.
the thing with T Higgins that's weird is if any team is gonna go after him, it's gonna be an NFC team. I mean, like I could see T Higgins being in Dallas. I mean, I really could. They need a second receiver. I mean, Brandon Cooks,
Yeah, definitely.
um, you cannot depend on Brandon Cooks to be your wide receiver too. I think Brandon Cooks is a very good wide receiver. I just think now, when with his age, he's a wide receiver three, a very good wide receiver three for that. But with all the free agent moves and everything moving around, obviously we had Josh Jacobs go to the Packers, and for 5 minutes, everybody thought that Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs were going to be the best fucking running back duo in football. And then 5 minutes later, Aaron Jones is released. So that, that fairy tale ending came to its head there. Um, but my biggest question to you is, and really like my big question to you is, like, was this DeAndre Swift signing for the Bears for $24 million basically the first move of free agency besides Russell Wilson going to the Steelers? Do you think that this contract for Swift tells us more than we need to know now about what they'll do at number one, or do you think that we might be reading too much into the signing? Because it's a 3-year deal.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but just that move in general set everything off. I feel like the Bears picking him up, then Saquon goes to the Eagles to fill his spot, and then just a lot of pieces started kind of filling in place after that. And
Yeah.
Pollard going to the Titans really hurts Dallas. Dallas is really, I feel like, hurting for a running back.
Yeah. Dallas is hurting for a running back, but they've always been good at developing them in the draft. I mean, Tony Pollard was developed through the draft. So, um, my biggest question mark really comes down to really these, four receivers really that haven't signed yet. And it's Calvin Ridley, it's Tyler Boyd, it's Curtis Samuel, and it's Michael Thomas. And I think all four of those guys can bring value to an offense in some way, shape, or another. Marquise Brown with his speed, Calvin Ridley with his route ability, and Michael Thomas, from just me speaking from what I've seen, he's a red zone threat. And Tyler Boyd is could be a legitimate wide receiver too on any team in the NFL. I firmly believe that.
Oh, for sure.
But he's just been playing in the shadows of T and Jamar. So, I wanted to ask you before we deep dive into more defensive guys, but where do you think Marquise Brown, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, and Michael Thomas, where do you think that they all go? I know that's a lot to kind of unravel, four guys, but where could you see all four of those guys ending up?
I mean, I feel like Marquise Brown, if he can get the deal over the line, he should just stay with the Ravens. But I could see him going to maybe like a Dallas or Houston Texans, maybe type of team to be like the second wide receiver there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of still have questions on like, is Cortland Sutton going somewhere? Is Diggs gonna lock in and stay? Is he getting traded? I mean, I know those aren't as fiery as the other wide receivers we're talking about, but I still kind of want to see what they end up doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like me personally, I look at the Gabe Davis signing for how much that the Jaguars paid Gabe Davis. I think that Cortland Sutton ends up on Buffalo. Um, Somehow, some way or another, the Bills are gonna make a call for Cortland Sutton, whether that's during the draft, whether that is, tonight when we go to sleep. I think Cortland Sutton ends up on the Bills, just because of his how good he was last year, in a minimized offense with Russell Wilson in Denver. Obviously, Sean Payton and Russell never got along. We saw that. But I think it's like really, really cool to see how many players are moving, because it kind of like shakes up the NFL for a little bit. I remember seeing a tweet that Sauce Gardner said, and he was like, it looks like a fucking Madden franchise on my timeline right now. And like, I can't unsee that after he said it. I mean, we look at Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. I think we really need to deep dive on that move, Cam, because that move can shake up the entire NFC South and maybe some not NFL, NFC playoff seedings down the road. What do you think Atlanta's ceiling is with Kirk Cousins at quarterback? Because now there's no excuse. You've got the quarterback, you've got the weapons, you've got the defense. What can they do?
I think their biggest enemy is going to be themselves. I don't know. I feel like they have just too many injury prone players. I want to see what Bijan does this next season because I think he's got a lot to give, and he's a really good player, like a Derrick Henry type of running back. But I don't know. I saw a report where before Lamar Jackson had signed that they were going to offer him 200 million, and they said that was too much, and then they just gave Kirk Cousins 180. It's kind of crazy to me.
Hmm.
But yeah, they had to secure a quarterback, so by any means, the quarterback contracts are just going to keep going up. But I could see them being maybe a playoff contender, but maybe out in the first round type of exit. I don't know if you see a much higher ceiling for them.
This is what I'm gonna say, and I've said this for a couple months now. The NFC is weak right now, so people need to strike when the time is right. So you see what the Eagles did, obviously. Like you see what they did. They brought in Barkley, they brought in Josh Huff, they brought in Gardner Johnson, right? You look at what the 49ers did. They're making little moves here and there. I mean, they brought in Leonard Floyd, right, as another pass rusher. You look at all of these NFC teams that are just retooling certain things. The Lions going and getting Carlton Davis from Tampa Bay. You look at that move, and that's a cornerback one for that team now. I mean, they don't have to go out and trade for L'Jarius Sneed because now they have a cornerback one. They don't have to really worry about anything like that. Um, so you just look at all these NFC teams. They're trying to strike. They're trying to catch the Niners. And right now, it's just like chess. It's just like playing chess, dude. These teams are waiting for certain players to become available so they can strike. We didn't even bring it up, but I think that we deep dive more into the Kirk situation. And this is all I have to say about it is if you were offering any other quarterback this money, I wouldn't be opposed to it. My problem with paying Kirk Cousins 180 million with 100 million guaranteed is he played on turf when this happened. Atlanta Falcons Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is a turf stadium where he didn't tear it in that stadium, but he tore it on turf, which tells me, okay, well, there's an injury history there. And if he comes back too soon trying to save the day for the Falcons, what's the injury risk there? So then if he gets injured, let's say Kirk Cousins isn't what Kirk Cousins is. Kirk Cousins isn't the accurate passer that we all know that he can be. Because let's be real, Kirk Cousins might not win in the big stage, but he is and has been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL for the last 5 years. It's proven stats. Um, their ceiling is a playoff appearance. That's it. That that that's that's it. The only thing that they can do to, you know, make me change my mind on that is adding somebody young in the draft to learn from Kirk Cousins. I mean, they are sitting at pick number 8, I believe. So, if they draft a Michael Penix or a JJ McCarthy, maybe have him sit for a couple years, maybe have him learn from Kirk Cousins. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe they draft one in round 2, who knows? But that's the best course of action. But I think that we deep dive now more into the defensive guys. And I wanted to ask you, Cam, what you thought the biggest splash of the defensive free agency was and has been up to this point. What shocked you the most?
I think Brian Burns going to the Giants, them adding a weapon on off or on defense when they lost a weapon on offense kind of shocked me. Where they let Saquon go to add to the defense. I don't know what their plan is for their offense, but that kind of shocked me. I figured they'd go for an offensive weapon.
Yeah, yeah. Brian Burns pairing with Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. It's a scary D line for offensive lines to go up against. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Um, if Kayvon Thibodeau takes another step, they might have the best D line unit in the league. You know, like they're pretty close to it. I mean, they just need Thibodeau to kind of come into his own more next year. Maybe have like a 10, 11 sack year. Um, but yeah, Brian Burns going to the Giants, man. That was that was crazy. And what they got Brian Burns for also has me questioning a lot of teams' decision not to trade for him. Like if you're the Rams, why wouldn't you have made that deal? You know what I mean? If you're not the Bengals, for example, that need, somebody next to Hendrickson to rush the passer, why wouldn't you make that deal? I mean, let's be real. Carolina needed a receiver. They got it now in Deontay Johnson, but I mean, let's think like, 12 hours ago. Why wouldn't you trade T. Higgins to Carolina for Brian Burns? Like, why didn't Cincinnati think of that? Because now you're going to have to deal with T. Higgins pissed off for the next, I don't know, 2 months probably until either A, he gets a new contract or B, he gets the contract and he's traded somewhere. But the biggest surprise that I have in defensive free agency up to this point is definitely Danielle Hunter going over to Houston. And the reason why I think that is because Danielle Hunter's 29. Will Anderson is young. Will Anderson was drafted in the draft last year. You give a pass rusher like Will Anderson somebody to learn from in Danielle Hunter, that is going to be scary hours down there in Houston. The other one that can't go overlooked is Christian Wilkins going to the Raiders to pair with Max Crosby. Now, this is what's really cool to see now is teams are pairing these elite pass rushers together because teams are realizing that you only win in the trenches in this league. That's where you win first. And I think it's really cool to see that a lot of these teams are paying the money to get defensive players for once. I think that's really cool. I'm not saying that defensive players haven't gotten paid in the past. I'm saying that they have such a good trajectory going up from now of like what the defensive positions were making, let's say 10 years ago. Like a defensive tackle 10 years ago was making like 7.5 million annually, if that. And now you see Chris Jones getting 30 million per year. You know what I mean? It's just like a trajectory thing. But I wanted to ask you too your opinion on the Patrick Queen addition going from Baltimore going to a division rival in the Steelers, and if so, how good does Patrick Queen make that Steelers defense over there in Pittsburgh?
I'm not sure how much better he makes the Steelers defense, but I know the Ravens were really trying to keep him there. So I know that he's good enough where the Ravens wanted to keep him. So he's definitely going to add something to the Steelers. But I don't see the Steelers having a very good year this year, honestly. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I don't know what you see their ceiling being this year, but I don't see it being very high.
Well, with the addition of Patrick Queen, this is what I will say. The Steelers haven't had a like a I guess a pass coverage linebacker since Ryan Shazier. We all know how that worked out. Like Ryan Shazier obviously had one of the most traumatic injuries we've ever seen on a football field, um, which was devastating in the fact. But they haven't had a. My point is they haven't had a coverage linebacker since him. That has been dominant. And you add Patrick Queen to Mike Tomlin led defense. I really like it. I really, really like it. I think Patrick Queen is going to be able to get the D line in better spots and able to rush the passer, but able to fill gaps in which he can make tackles. And also Cole Holcomb, who's going to be next to him, who played in that system last year. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool to see. But the real like you know, thumper that really was just like a weird move to me was Jordan Brooks going from Seattle to Miami. Now, I would have thought that the head coach there that just went from Baltimore, the D coordinator that just became the head coach in Seattle, I thought he would have wanted to keep Jordan Brooks, you know, kind of as like a centerpiece for that defense. Because obviously Bobby Wagner last year only signing a 1 year deal, and he's still a free agent right now. Bobby Wagner still has not signed anywhere, which is really cool to see. Um, but I wanted to ask you a few questions about what the Patriots are doing because we haven't really done a damn thing. We re-signed Owenu. We re-signed Josh Uche, and I believe and we re-signed Kendrick Bourne, which
Yep.
we were talking about the other day, which was really, really important for them to do, and I'm glad that they got that deal done. But let's deep dive more into the Patriots and why they're not spending the money we think that they were going to going into free agency. And why do you think right now that they're not making a deal happen? Why do you think that they have all this money, but this talent isn't accruing and coming to New England? Do you think it's a scarce thing? Like people think that playing for the Patriots is something like working for the mob? I'm confused as why people don't want to come here and play.
Well, yeah, the Patriots the last couple of years definitely haven't been an appealing spot to for free agents to want to come, and I can definitely understand that. But with the money they have, they definitely could go after a few huge players or maybe trade picks on draft night. Who knows what they're going to do? But I would at some point trade some of the picks for a player.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to trade 2 first rounds for Brian Burns like the Giants did, but there's plenty of options that they could go for with picks or with whatever. I mean, what was the trade they got Jerry Judy for? A fifth and a
Fifth,
sixth, or fourth and a fifth?
fifth and the sixth. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
fifth and a sixth, and you just got a wide receiver too.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that they make a move. See, that's the thing. Like, why the fuck not go after T. Higgins? Like, why not? Like, he's available for trade. Why not? Why not trade for him? Why not? They have the fucking cap space too, dude. And you're gonna need a quarterback who's gonna need a fucking wide receiver. Why wouldn't they trade with Cincinnati for T. Higgins? Why wouldn't you trade? I don't know. Why wouldn't you trade? I hate to say it, but like, why wouldn't you trade a Matt Judon for a T. Higgins?
Ooh, that hurt my soul, but I do see your point. We could definitely get a lot for defenders.
Like 100%. Like Matt Judon, like obviously he had injuries last year. But like, dude, he's a 15, 16 sack guy when he's healthy. Still, I believe. I mean, unless he's tailed off, but like I doubt that. Um, but like, why wouldn't you make that deal? Everybody in New England bitches that we don't have any fucking offense. I mean, if you're the new GM of the Patriots, bro, make a splash. Like, when's the last time the Patriots made a splash in free agency? You guys were sitting here bitching. Everybody was sitting here bitching that Belichick ain't done anything and that Belichick would never make a splash in free agency. Now you guys get rid of the fucking Belichick. You bring in Gerard Mayo. You bring in this new GM. You bring in all this shit. And we're sitting here on day 2 of free agency and we've only re signed 3 fucking players. This is not okay. This is not right. This doesn't even sit well with Cam and I. We sit here today bringing you guys authentic New England Patriots coverage, and we have really nothing to bring you guys because they haven't done a damn thing. Now some names that I really want them to look at is I really want them to bring in Adoree Jackson. I think that would be good in the secondary. And I also want them to try to go after Cameron Curl. Obviously, we know that next year Jabril Peppers' contract will be up. I think that if you're the Patriots, you could offer Cincinnati maybe Jabril Peppers, maybe a second round pick, maybe a fifth round pick, and you go get yourself T. Higgins. While trading him, you go out and you get Cameron Curl because you can afford both. Now, another thing is you need to add some veteran leadership. You need to add somebody who has taken and knows how to win. So why not bring in Bobby Wagner? Why not? Why not bring somebody in who's going to fulfill the culture in which Gerard Mayo is going to want to play with? And Gerard Mayo played linebacker. And for that matter, he also has a very good relationship with Bobby Wagner because the first year that Gerard Mayo was at Florida, I believe that Bobby Wagner was on a visit to Florida. Didn't obviously end up playing for the University of Florida, but him and Gerard Mayo have always had a close connection over the years, and even when they both played in the NFL. So I could see them adding him to the mix also. Some other names that I could see them going after, maybe a Bud Dupree, maybe a Dante Fowler Jr., somebody who's been in the league for a couple years. But obviously, like you want somebody who's going to be a veteran leader, maybe not somebody who's going to have a 11, 12 sack year, but maybe somebody who's going to have a 3, 4 sack year, but plays bigger than his role. Um, but what do you think of bringing in some of that veteran talent to kind of help this young quarterback, whoever we do bring in, to kind of lift him up and try to see where he goes from there? I mean, if it's Drake May, cool, great. But that kid needs to sit. If it's Jaden Daniels, cool, great, he needs to sit. But what do you think? What do you think, Cam?
I mean, I like a lot of the options you were bringing up. I'd definitely look for a trade, like a pick deal and a defender for T. Higgins. And I'd call up the Chargers, see what they want for either Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack. I think he'd be a little bit better, but I mean, I think Joey Bosa is a better player, but he wouldn't play better in Gerard Mayo's system. So
Yeah,
yeah, if you were to bring in like one of the defenders or two of the defenders you said with a Khalil Mack and you get like a T. Higgins or a Calvin Ridley. I mean, Calvin Ridley might stay in Jacksonville. I don't know why he would, but he might stay. But if you get like one elite receiver,
oh, he ain't
two or
staying in
three good
Jacksonville.
defenders, I think that's all we're away from a good team.
I mean, he only stays in Jacksonville if it's like a 1 year deal. Like, because that wide receiver room is now so full. They've got Zay Jones, who has 2 years left on his contract. They have Christian Kirk, who they just paid a shit ton of money to a few off seasons ago. They just paid Gabe Davis. They have Jamal Agnew also. Dude, that room is full. That room is full, dog. If Calvin Ridley if Calvin Ridley, man, if you're listening to this podcast, Calvin, we want you in New England, dude. This is a simple fact and a simple reason why. Man, you are one of the best route runners in football. Okay? If there's anybody that is going to teach a young quarterback how to get the ball out of his hands quick, it's you, dude. It's you. Like, dude, Calvin Ridley, you came into the league, you were fresh out of Alabama, you came into the league, you started playing with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan basically made your career, bro. Like, let's be real. Like, Matt Ryan was the shit for you. If you come to New England, bro, you get to resurrect why you're one of the best wide receivers in football. Why not come to New England and show everybody that you can be a 1,500-yard receiver again with a fucking rookie quarterback? Because that would just shut the fucking world up about how, with your gambling addictions and all of this that they were saying about you the last few years, you can shut all of them up. And for the better part of it, what if the Patriots make the playoffs and you're a 1,500-yard receiver and you only sign a 1 year deal, Calvin Ridley? Guess what? When you turn
You're getting
30
fucking
next year,
paid.
you're getting a bag. You're getting a bag and a half because somebody is going to look at what you did in New England with a rookie quarterback and they're going to think, oh, he did that with Jaden Daniels, or oh, he did that with Bo Nix. Calvin, come to New England, dude. Me and Cam are praying for it. Cam, Calvin Ridley talk is all done, but I wanted to ask you, if it's not Calvin Ridley, who is it? Because we've been over the T. Higgins thing, but they need to add a wide receiver in free agency somehow. How do they do it? How do they lure somebody from another team like Deontay Johnson was? today going to Carolina? Who do they call? Who could you see a team saying, "Yeah, you can take him. Just offer me, a few players, maybe a pick or two." Who could you see on the move?
I mean, I think the only other receiver other than maybe T. Higgins would be Cortland Sutton, but it looks like he's going to Buffalo. So I don't know. I feel like the Patriots might have to just draft a bunch of receivers and see who pans out at this point, honestly, if they don't pull another receiver.
Yeah, that would absolutely suck too because they would just be back at square one, right? Um,
No, yeah, definitely.
um, but this is the thing with the Patriots too is like if they do go and get somebody in free agency, like somebody who rings a bell, who hasn't been very happy with what's going on in his team's offseason, dude, I want them to do it so bad. Like, so bad in my being, I want them to do it. I want the Patriots to trade for Justin Jefferson. I want them to do it. I, I, they have the money. They have the money to extend him. You have the opportunity to play with a rookie quarterback. And if it's Jaden Daniels, there's an LSU connection there. It just seems too right to me. It
Then
seems
other receivers want to come too. If you're
right.
if you see Justin Jefferson go and you're a Cortland Sutton or T. Higgins, you're not like licking your lips going to play with them.
Exactly. That's the price point. The price point for him is probably going to be high. They're probably going to have to swap picks with them at least, so the Patriots would sit at 11 at that point. So they probably could trade up from 11 and maybe get Daniels because I think Minnesota would probably pick McCarthy and fuck it up. Um, or I think they would pick like a Penix and fuck it up, pick him way too high. Um, Not disrespecting Michael Penix. I just if you pick one of those kids that needs a year to sit, then if you start them right away, they're not going to pan out. We've seen it firsthand. But if they make a trade with Minnesota, that would be cool. That would be really cool. But I think the more realistic one for them to do is trading with Washington for Terry McLaurin. I think that
Oh yeah, that would be an awesome pickup.
I think that would be an awesome pickup one, and I think it would also kind of give New England fans like like we can take a deep breath, like we finally got a fucking wide receiver. And then from that point, you pick, the quarterback at 3, and then from that point, maybe you trade back into the first round and you do draft, not a Kenyon Mitchell, but a Adonai Mitchell from Texas, who is very, very skilled on tape. Love his tape. Very good wide receiver. Very physical too. But I wanted to ask you and really deep dive for a few more minutes here before we wrap up. But what is if the Patriots do make a trade and say it is Terry McLaurin that comes into New England? Do the Patriots then go after Marquise Brown, or do they then go after one of these free agent guys? Because, we've been sitting here for the last 2 days and we're saying, if they do make a trade or if they do this, but let's sit with reality because we're the most realistic sports show around. But what's the most realistic thing that you could see the Patriots doing in the next coming days? I mean, we could be missing signings right now, but my phone's not going off, so I don't think we're missing too much. But um, what do you think? What do you think the Patriots do in the next few days here in free
Yeah, I mean, I
agency?
think the very best they get off with is maybe Scary Terry and Sutton, or Terry and maybe. I mean, T. Higgins would be awesome, but I don't think T. Higgins is gonna just be jumping for joy to go to New England either.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of maybe. Yeah, I'd say maybe those two. I don't know. Who do you see coming for receivers to or for New England receivers?
So this is a name that comes to mind immediately just because he's kind of been in the shadows just like his whole career where he's been at because of who he plays for. and it's Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup is somebody that I feel like has never really had the chance to be a wide receiver one. Now, when Dallas did pay him, they basically did pay him like wide receiver two money at the time. I think Michael Gallup can be a wide receiver one. I really do firmly believe that. If I'm New England, I go trade for Michael Gallup. That's not going to cost you much because of the production he's had in Dallas, because he's been hidden. He's been shadowed behind CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks, and even for a little time there in Terrence Williams when Romo was there. Um, I think Michael Gallup has the ability to be a wide receiver one. Patriots need to trade for him. Another name that comes to mind is Tyler Boyd. I think Tyler Boyd would be a very good addition for New England. The reason being is because Tyler Boyd is one of those possession receivers who isn't really worried about how many yards he's accruing per season. More of like a red zone target kind of a person. So I could see the Patriots adding him also. But the Patriots got to do a lot in free agency, Cam. I mean, we're sitting here on day two. They've got to do a lot. They've got to catch up on a lot. They've got to get back to the old X's and O's and figure out what their game plan is. But I wanted to ask you, is there anything else that you have to say about free agency and about really what's happened and what's transpired over the last 48 hours?
I mean, a lot's happened. I just hope for the Patriots that they stop reinforcing the defense and put some of that effort into the offense, honestly. I know Gerard Mayo's a defensive player. Of course, I'd want to reinforce the defense. Defense wins games as much as offense does, if not more. But at this point, it's like it's been the same problem for the last couple of years. And I just have a weird feeling like a Devontae Parker going to Philly. He's still going to have like a really good year in Philly. He's going to have at least like a 700 to 900 yard season,
Yeah.
which is just going to get Patriots fans angry. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the Patriots just need to do more to help the offense. And I think they're going to draft a lot for offense, but drafting a lot of players for offense and then starting them immediately is not going to do you much good. A lot of players and teams just get lucky. Like maybe like Jamar Gibbs was as good as he was.
Mm.
Like a lot of players don't just do that their first year.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of players don't do that. I mean, we remember in 2016 when Zeke broke out on the scene. But let's be real, guys. It wasn't Zeke that broke out on the scene. It was that offensive line that the Cowboys had that was just absolutely elite at the time. Um, but I think today, Cam, that is going to wrap up episode 10 of the New England Shakeup. We really, guys, deep dived into free agency, deep dive into, where the pending free agents, if are any left in the next few days. Cam and I will be sure to deep dive on that during the weekend. But we wanted to poll a question, and, you guys can comment this at the end of the show, but what is the most explosive Patriots player that anybody has ever seen? And Cam and I, we're not going to answer this until next show, but we want to ask you guys that question. Who is the most explosive player that the Patriots have ever had? And before we wrap it up and before you guys, call at us for our heads, there is no Gronk on the list. There is no James White on the list. There is no Randy Moss on the list. So it has to be anybody other than those three. So, on that note, guys, episode 10 of the New England Shakeup is wrapping up. Cam, do you have anything left to say to the people today?
No, I think we kind of nailed the landing on that one. Honestly, I don't feel like I have anything that I missed. I mean, I haven't checked my phone for the last 40 minutes, but yeah, I mean, I was just kind of shocked with some of the signings. I mean, Austin Eckler was the one that really shocked me to the Commanders, but I feel like his career's kind of gone by the wayside anyway. I
Yeah,
think that's all I got.
yeah. All right, guys. Well, this is episode 10 of the New England Shakeup, and we are off.